Hello and welcome to probably one of the best games that you've never heard of. And honestly, it kind of fills in with the idea that it's so rare to find a movie based game that is done well. Now, of course, the most glaring ideology behind that is, well, the things we don't talk about, who I'm not going to mention, but you see them. So, but before I waste more of y'all's time, let's get right into this thing. So, from pretty much right off the get go, you're thrown into this like dystopian hellscape that is filled to the brim with criminals and like citizens just trying to survive and so on and so forth. And I really do think this game does follow the movies in a way that is really respectful of the source material, which I think is hard to do in kind of these movie based games or game based movies. Now, from pretty much the get go, you're thrown into the token Robocop persona. You are him in every sense of the word, and people treat you as so. I really do think it feeds into the idea that this world is such a shit show, in harshest terms, that people either treat you with the utmost respect because you're Robocop, or people despise you because you literally symbolize the thing that they hate. Now, the game really does a good job at feeding into both these stereotypes, and I honestly do believe that for anybody that is a fan of Robocop, like me myself personally, it is before my time. So I haven't even seen the 2014 version, even though it has the actor in the main role that I would think I would like to see in that role. But just to be honest, I don't really have any skin in the game, but I still thoroughly enjoyed it in a way that made me feel like it was just done well. Now, from a campaign perspective and kind of a world perspective, I'm sure most of you should be able to tell that this game is really pretty. And honestly, the locales that you end up in and the places you do and the people you see, all of them feel more realistic and living. They do kind of have the Outer Worlds character model issue, which like they kind of look weird and their mouths move in a weird way sometimes. But for the most part, I think that the game really does build a nice 80s post-apocalyptic, not post-apocalyptic, dystopian America in a way that feels very accurate to this time period. Everything looks good, everything reacts in a way that you really wouldn't expect it to. And we'll talk about this more in the gameplay, but I was very impressed by the game from just a technical standpoint as far as just how it looks. Everything looks good and everything looks like it's placed in a way that makes sense. It's not just thrown in clutter. So let's get into the campaign though. The campaign is essentially just you as Robocop kind of navigating the world in between your own ears, I'd say. I know that sounds kind of weird because I'm just a murdering tank in pretty much every clip in this video. But there are more than enough parts in the game, which I don't want to spoil anything, but I'll just say where you are kind of trying to live with the idea, or Robocop is trying to find his humanity somewhere between all these different computer parts. It really does feed into the idea that like if something like this was to happen, at what point are you considered just a machine as opposed to a human being still? It's very interesting, but without getting into too many spoilers, let's just say that that part of the game is very cool, that it's like it still draws back to some of the things from the movies in a way that feels accurate to what this game is. But for the most part, you're going to be doing what I'm doing in this clip, which is mostly you're going to be solving clues. You're going to be murdering the different gangs that you deal with. There's like 3 or 4 different gangs that you have to deal with. And honestly, just kind of being a cop. As funny as it sounds, there's even a part where, which I might post it after this clip, where you're literally just working the lobby in a police precinct and kind of doing the things that a normal cop would do. It's very funny in the way that like at the end of every mission, you get a rank, right? Which is cool. You get a rank A, B, C through A through S, as standard with most games nowadays. But then, like, you'll be walking around the police precinct, and people are like, "Hey, can you help me calibrate my gun?" Or "Hey, can you help me do this?" Or "Hey, we need to sign a card for a cop that's in the hospital." Like, it all feels very accurate to what I imagine a police in the 1980s would do. You're dealing with complaints with somebody up front. You're helping do this. You're helping do that. You're dealing with politicians who want to use your face as the face of their campaign. It all feels very, it's super respectful of the source material in a way that I think anybody that is a fan of these kind of 80s action movies is going to love. First thing that comes to mind for me, of course, is things like Terminator, Dread, and so on and so forth. And honestly, the thing that this made me realize is that I need to play, or we need more games based on these IPs from the 80s, as they can be done well if they're done in a way that isn't cheap and kind of what's the best way to say it? Cheap and like sacrificial lamb-esque. Like just throw a bunch of assets together with the name on and then hope for the best. Like this game is made with such a level of care that I couldn't help but be impressed that it just feels great to kind of experience it. And honestly, as someone who bought it for $9.99, I would honestly say this is a good $20 to $30 game. And honestly, anybody that sees it as something that is only a cheap pickup, I would think we'd want to support developers like this as opposed to the AAA slop we get nowadays. But what we're going to talk about next is the gameplay, the best part of all. Now, I'll go out on a limb here and say that in hindsight, which hindsight's 2020, if the gameplay hadn't been as good as it had, I don't know if I would have finished this game. Now, what I mean by that, and what I mean by this big obnoxious text in front of me, is that this game really is the perfect walking tank simulator. Now, what that means in simplest terms is that you are essentially Robocop, a robotic man who doesn't have the mobility of a normal human being, but you are a beef boy in the fact that you can survive pretty much stuff that would kill most humans. Getting hit by a rocket, yeah, it's going to obliterate you if you're a normal human, but as Robocop, you're okay. But this game really does feed into the idea that you are a walking machine of death that is only put on this post-dystopian future or post-dystopian past just to murder everything in sight. Now, I think this is really where a lot of people are going to enjoy this game because it really does feel like you are, just because of the basic HUD, as you've probably seen from most of these clips, the HUD really feeds in the idea that like you are this super cop that is put in this game to kill everything as efficiently as possible. And more often than not, you are the one killing things as efficiently as possible, unless you're playing there's these little sections where like you're kind of fighting against your other SWAT members or you're fighting against robots, and not in like a competitive way as opposed to a killing way. And I can't say I ever won one of these, but I can hope at the end of the day that maybe one day I won't be trash. But it really does kind of put in perspective that Robocop does the job of multiple cops, especially once you get to the later aspects and you're kind of fighting with other police officers and you realize like, though these are AI and they don't have any feelings, they can't feel anything, me getting hit by dozens of things doesn't matter as opposed to them having to hide behind cover and so on. So it really does, rounding back around to what I originally said, it really does round into the idea that you are this super soldier that is just a crime-fighting monster. What I really think this game does well, and honestly I'm sure you can tell by my random night vision pop right there, is that this game really does just put you in the reins of being just this monster with your Auto 9 pistol, and criminals really do stand no chance against you. There are some parts later, towards the latter half of the game, which this clip I think is from probably about halfway, so there really isn't too much. But there are some parts in the game where you finally realize like the only things that can really stop Robocop are these other robots. And it really does feed into the idea that you are put into the role of this thing that is just a big badass and nothing can really stop you. Now, I will say, as most you can probably see from these gameplay clips, is that everything around you, which I think this is what impressed me most about the gameplay and what made it most fun, is everything is pretty much destructible. I thought the best clip to show this, of course, was a giant office, because everything, as shit is getting shredded around you, everything is just particles everywhere. Like, I don't know how my base PS5 wasn't exploding playing this game. Granted, I did play it on performance mode, which performance mode is usually pretty good, but you kind of get what I'm saying in that the hyper violence of these 80s styles action movies is really at your fingertips in most of this game. And when you're not doing the Batman detective part of it, you're doing exactly what I'm doing in these clips, which is blowing everything around you to shreds without any regard for human life, as long as they're not civilians or other police. I really do think that from a technical standpoint as well, this game is extremely impressive at just like how bullets react with stuff. And I really found myself just kind of shooting at things just to see how they would react to my bullets, and including the human bodies that you shoot, because this game is like, there's literally an attachment, which I haven't showed the perk system yet, but there is a perk, which it's for your pistol specifically, where it's like more gore. It's like the Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 3 perks, and I think Fallout 4 as well, where like people just explode into a fucking pile of blood. Yeah, that's what happens in this game, and it's honestly super, it just all feels super good when you put it together. And I think that's why, as we're about to get into the last half of this little mini review, because this game really doesn't have much to talk about, I really want to draw attention to really what this game is. When we bring it all together, this campaign that kind of feels like an 80s action movie, and like you're doing these detective work and you're doing side quests to help the civilians and you're helping your fellow police, and then you get into these fights with these other gangs and so on and so forth, or whatever else you're fighting towards the latter half of the game. This game just really feels like it was made by a team that is respectful of the things that came before. Now, what I mean by that, of course, is that the Robocop movies, which I haven't seen, so I don't know, but from what I have seen, this game is glaringly accurate to what the source material is. Now, I think people will enjoy it. Yes, I think most people that kind of branch outside of the normal stereotypical AAA games will love this. Do I think it's worth a full price? Now, I'm not sure exactly what it is full price, and maybe I'll post it right here just in case. But this game on sale is more than worth your money, just because of the fact that everything feels like it feels like it's made so well, and that everything feels like it was made with care, which at the end of the day, in the modern gaming landscape of kind of mediocre AAA and people feeling like they're not getting their money's worth, I do think a game like this is honestly the best kind of thing you should look for. So, as with all my reviews, or this is kind of a half-assed review because this is just a video I wanted to put out because this game impressed me so much, this game is definitely a buy. I will go as far as to say I would spend $20 on this game. I might even spend $30 on this game just to support these developers. I really do hope that they realize, as we get to the end of this, that there are other IPs from this kind of time period. I haven't played the new Terminator, I will say. I know there's a newer Terminator game that came out within the last like 5 years that I haven't played. But let me get a Dread game. Let me get like I don't know. These people need to be put in charge of something, because their work is amazing. And honestly, that's all I have for today. This is a pretty short video. Hope y'all enjoyed it. I know I blabbed a little bit, but hey, that's what we're here for at the end of the day. As always, I hope y'all have a good rest of your day, and, well, today is Friday, the 21st of March, which means I'm going to go back to playing Assassin's Creed, but this game will always be in my mind. Love y'all. Mean it.